In the 1950s, some cars were built to be ignored. They looked slow, ordinary, and harmless. But these unknown sleepers were anything but. Hidden power, zero flash, and enough performance to humiliate modern muscle cars.
Click the subscribe button. This is the channel where you will find rare and incredible facts about cars.
The Studebaker Golden Hawk, produced between 1956 and 1958, occupies one of the most uncomfortable places in American automotive history because it exists as a contradiction. It contradicts the accepted birth date of the muscle car. It contradicts the idea that innovation only came from Detroit's giants. And it contradicts the belief that performance culture in America began in the 1960s. When people say the Golden Hawk scares muscle car fans, what they really mean is that it threatens the story they've grown comfortable with, a clean, chronological rise from mild family sedans to fire-breathing legends. The Golden Hawk doesn't follow that arc, it cuts across it. By the mid-1950s, the American car industry was obsessed with size, ornamentation, and predictability. Power existed, but it was hidden beneath layers of chrome and reassurance. Cars were sold as symbols of prosperity and calm, not aggression. Even performance-minded machines were softened by marketing language that emphasized smoothness and ease rather than speed or dominance. In this environment, Studebaker was already an outsider. The company was smaller, financially strained, and increasingly desperate to remain relevant. That desperation, however, freed it from caution. Studebaker could afford to take risks that the Big Three avoided, and the Golden Hawk was one of those risks made real. What Studebaker created was not a loud statement, but a quiet provocation. The Golden Hawk did not announce itself with flamboyant styling or exaggerated muscle. Instead, it relied on proportion and intent. It was lighter than most of its competitors, more aerodynamic, and far less burdened by excess. Beneath its relatively reserved exterior sat a level of performance that was simply inappropriate for its time. The 1956 model's Packard-sourced V8 already pushed the car into territory that many American drivers had never experienced. Acceleration was immediate and forceful, not gradual and polite. The car felt alive in a way most mid-1950s vehicles did not. Then came 1957, and with it, the moment that truly unsettles the muscle car narrative. Studebaker fitted the Golden Hawk with a McCulloch supercharger, a device still considered exotic and borderline reckless for a production American car. This was not about incremental improvement, it was about rewriting expectations. The supercharged Golden Hawk delivered power with urgency and violence, launching the car forward in a way that rivaled contemporary sports cars and embarrassed much larger engines saddled with heavier bodies. At a time when many cars struggled to feel stable at highway speeds, the Golden Hawk was charging comfortably into triple digits. This was not theory or advertising exaggeration, it was measured, tested, and documented performance. The discomfort arises because the Golden Hawk proves that the core principles of the muscle car, high power, straight-line dominance, and emotional intensity, were already understood and executed years before the genre was supposedly born. Muscle car fans often cling to 1964 as a starting line because it offers clarity. It's easier to celebrate a movement when it begins with a recognizable name and a marketing push behind it. The Golden Hawk offers no such convenience. It arrived too early, from the wrong company, and without the cultural reinforcement needed to cement its legend. By 1958, Studebaker was running out of time. Financial realities forced changes that softened the Golden Hawk's raw edge. The supercharger disappeared, and the engine became more conservative. Ironically, the car became more balanced and refined, just as its most fearsome reputation faded. Shortly afterward, Studebaker's decline accelerated, and with it went the institutional memory that could have preserved the Golden Hawk as a cornerstone of American performance history. What remains today is a car that challenges enthusiasts to reconsider what they think they know. The Golden Hawk was not a prototype, not a limited experiment, and not a footnote. It was a fully realized performance machine built during an era that supposedly wasn't ready for such things. It did not need the muscle car era to justify its existence. It anticipated it. That anticipation is precisely why it unsettles people. If the Golden Hawk is acknowledged for what it truly was, then the muscle car story becomes less tidy, less centralized, and less exclusive. The Studebaker Golden Hawk stands as a reminder that history often rewards those who survive, not those who arrive first. It shows that innovation can be ignored, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too soon. And in that sense, the Golden Hawk remains exactly what it was in the 1950s, a quiet, unapologetic monster that never asked for permission and never received the credit it deserved.
The late 1950s Cadillac Series 62 represents a moment in American automotive history where reality quietly contradicted expectation. Cadillac was never supposed to be fast. It was supposed to be refined, dignified, and unhurried, a symbol of arrival rather than ambition. In the cultural hierarchy of the era, speed belonged to hot rods and racers, while Cadillac belonged to boardrooms and red carpets. Yet the Series 62 emerged as a machine whose performance was impossible to ignore, precisely because it was never meant to be noticed. Everything about the car projected calm authority. It was large, elegant, and composed, built to insulate its occupants from noise, effort, and urgency. The ride was soft, the cabin serene, and the driving experience effortless. There was no sense of aggression in its design or demeanor, and that was the point. Cadillac's confidence came from control, not from spectacle. The Series 62 did not look like it wanted to go fast, and that illusion made its true capability all the more striking. Beneath that composure lived a powerful V8 that redefined how performance could be delivered. Cadillac's engines in the late 1950s were not about high drama or racing theatrics. They were about surplus. Torque arrived early and without strain, allowing the car to surge forward smoothly at almost any speed. Acceleration was not explosive or theatrical, but steady, relentless, and commanding. The sensation was less about excitement and more about inevitability, as if the car simply decided to move the world out of its way. What made this especially disruptive was that Cadillac achieved this without sacrifice. While other fast cars demanded noise, stiffness, and constant attention, the Series 62 required nothing from its driver. It could cruise effortlessly for hours, and then, without warning or fuss, out-accelerate cars that were openly marketed as performance machines. Its size and weight, often assumed to be disadvantages, instead provided stability and confidence at high speeds, particularly on the expanding American highway system. The Series 62 demonstrated that luxury and performance were not opposites, but partners. When power is abundant and refinement is complete, speed becomes invisible. Cadillac did not need to look fast or sound aggressive because it had nothing to prove. Its performance was not a statement. It was a consequence of engineering without restraint. In the end, the late 1950s Cadillac Series 62 delivered its knockout punch in silence. It challenged the idea that speed must announce itself and proved that true power can exist without urgency or drama. Cadillac may never have been supposed to be fast, but in proving that it could be, the Series 62 quietly redefined what American performance could mean. The Buick Century of 1954 to 1957 is one of the most understated yet dangerous cars of the 1950s because it achieved performance not through spectacle but through logic. Buick did something remarkably simple and quietly brilliant. It placed its largest, most powerful V8 into its smallest full-size body. There was no dramatic announcement, no radical styling shift, and no attempt to redefine the brand's image. The result was a car that looked respectable, even conservative, but behaved like something far more serious. This is why the Century earned its reputation as the quiet assassin. In an era when most manufacturers carefully separated luxury from performance, Buick accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, collapsed the distance between the two. The Century shared its body with more modest models, but under the hood sat the big nailhead V8, an engine designed for torque rather than theatrics. Its vertical valve design delivered power low in the rev range, exactly where a heavy American car needed it. The moment the accelerator was pressed, the Century responded with immediate, unforced motion. There was no build-up, no waiting for revs, just a smooth surge forward that felt effortless and decisive. What made this especially effective was how civilized the experience remained. Buick was known for refinement, and the Century did not abandon that identity. The ride was compliant, the cabin quiet, and the engine subdued in sound. Yet the car accelerated with a confidence that caught people off guard. While other cars advertised their speed through noise and aggression, the Century moved quickly without drawing attention to itself. Drivers often underestimated it, assuming it was just another comfortable family car, only to find themselves left behind when the road opened up. The combination of lightness, relative to Buick's larger offerings, and immense torque created a power-to-weight balance that felt ahead of its time. The Century didn't need to be driven hard to be fast. It rewarded calm inputs and steady throttle, delivering speed in a way that felt almost polite. This made it devastatingly effective in real-world driving, where passing power and mid-range acceleration mattered more than top-end numbers or dramatic launches. The Buick Century's legacy lies in how quietly it challenged convention. It proved that performance didn't require rebellion or visual aggression. By pairing the right engine with the right body, Buick created a car that delivered muscle before the term existed, wrapped in comfort and restraint. The Century didn't announce its intentions, it simply executed them, smoothly and relentlessly, leaving behind a lesson that would later define an entire generation of American performance cars.
The Oldsmobile Rocket 88, built from 1949 to 1953, is often mentioned in conversations about early performance cars, but it is rarely understood in terms of what it truly represented. It wasn't just fast for its time, and it wasn't simply an early experiment with a V8 in a smaller car. The Rocket 88 was a philosophical shift, a moment when American manufacturers accidentally discovered the formula that would dominate performance thinking for decades. Long before the muscle car era had a name, the Rocket 88 quietly wrote its first draft. What made the Rocket 88 so significant was not any single feature, but the way its components worked together. Oldsmobile placed its new high-compression 303 cubic inch Rocket V8 into the relatively light and compact 88 body. At the time, this was not standard practice. Large engines usually lived in large, heavy cars meant for comfort rather than urgency. By pairing a powerful engine with a lighter platform, Oldsmobile created something that felt fundamentally different behind the wheel. The car didn't just move, it responded. The Rocket V8 delivered strong, usable torque across a wide range of speeds. This meant the Rocket 88 didn't need to be driven aggressively to feel fast. Acceleration came smoothly and immediately, without drama or strain. In real-world driving, this made the car remarkably effective. Passing, merging, and sustained speed were effortless compared to most of its contemporaries. The power-to-weight ratio, exceptional for the early post-war period, gave the Rocket 88 an advantage that drivers could feel, even if they couldn't explain it. Equally important was how normal the car appeared. The Rocket 88 didn't look radical or specialized. It was a sedan, practical, comfortable, and usable every day. This is where its true influence lies. Oldsmobile unintentionally proved that performance did not have to be confined to sports cars or stripped-down racers. It could exist in a family sedan without sacrificing comfort or reliability. That idea would later become the foundation of the performance sedan and eventually the muscle car. The Rocket 88's success in motorsports, particularly in early NASCAR, further reinforced the formula, but its real impact was cultural and mechanical rather than competitive. It showed the industry that speed was not about extremes, but about balance. A lighter body, a powerful engine, and a broad torque curve could transform the driving experience without changing the car's fundamental role. In hindsight, the Oldsmobile Rocket 88 was not just ahead of its time, it defined its time before anyone realized what had happened. It didn't chase performance as a category, it revealed it as a possibility. That is why it deserves to be remembered not merely as an early fast car, but as the blueprint for performance sedans that followed.
The Chrysler C300 of 1955-1957 occupies a unique and often underappreciated place in automotive history. It emerged in an era when American cars were defined by size, comfort, and styling excess rather than outright performance. Horsepower figures were modest, suspensions were tuned for softness, and the idea of a factory-built high-performance sedan or coupe was almost unheard of. Against this backdrop, the C300 arrived as a shock to the system. It was not marketed as a rebel or a street fighter, yet its engineering and performance quietly rewrote the rules. In many respects, it laid down the template for the muscle car movement long before that movement had a name, an audience, or a cultural identity. In 1955, the number 300 in the C300's name was not a trim designation or a marketing flourish. It was a declaration of power. Producing 300 horsepower at a time when the average American car struggled to reach 150, the C300 instantly became the most powerful production car in the world. This was an era when even Cadillac, the benchmark for luxury and prestige, was producing engines with far less output. Chrysler's decision to double the prevailing horsepower norm was bold, especially considering that this power was delivered in a relatively refined, full-size automobile rather than a stripped-down racer. The implication was clear: performance did not need to be crude, and speed could coexist with comfort and engineering sophistication. At the heart of this achievement was the 331 cubic inch Hemi V8, an engine that would go on to become legendary. The hemispherical combustion chamber design allowed for larger valves, improved airflow, and more efficient combustion, giving Chrysler a decisive advantage over its competitors. This was not merely an exercise in increasing displacement. It was a triumph of intelligent engineering. The Hemi's architecture allowed it to breathe freely and rev more willingly than conventional V8s of the time, making its power both usable and reliable. When paired with dual 4-barrel carburetors, the engine delivered strong, consistent performance that was as effective on the highway as it was on the racetrack. What truly set the Chrysler C300 apart, however, was its intent. This was not a luxury car that happened to be fast, nor a race car reluctantly adapted for the street. It was a factory-built performance machine designed with motorsport dominance in mind, particularly NASCAR. During the mid-1950s, stock car racing was rapidly gaining popularity, and manufacturers understood that success on Sunday translated directly into showroom credibility on Monday. Chrysler engineered the C300 specifically to excel in this environment, equipping it with heavy-duty components, upgraded suspension tuning, and braking systems capable of handling sustained high-speed driving. The result was immediate and dramatic success, with the C300 dominating NASCAR competition in 1955 and establishing Chrysler as a serious force in American motorsport. Despite these accomplishments, the C300 never cultivated the loud, aggressive image that later muscle cars would embrace. Its styling was restrained, even conservative, especially when compared to the flamboyant designs that would define the 1960s. The C300 looked more like an executive express than a street brawler, and this visual understatement contributed to its subtle reputation. Where later muscle cars would advertise their intentions with hood scoops, racing stripes, and bold badging, the C300 relied on its engineering to speak for itself. This disconnect between appearance and performance is one of the reasons the car is often overlooked in popular discussions of muscle car history. Yet its influence is undeniable. The C300 established key principles that would later define the muscle car formula: a large displacement V8, factory-installed high-performance hardware, and a direct connection between racing and production vehicles. It also inaugurated Chrysler's famous Letter series, a run of increasingly powerful and refined cars that continued through the late 1950s and early 1960s. Each successor built upon the foundation laid by the original C300, pushing horsepower higher and performance further, and reinforcing the idea that American manufacturers could deliver elite performance straight from the showroom floor. In retrospect, the Chrysler C300 was a car that arrived before its time. It lacked the cultural context that would later elevate vehicles like the Pontiac GTO or Dodge Charger into icons. The 1950s were not yet ready to celebrate raw performance as a defining virtue in everyday cars. and as a result, the C300's achievements were appreciated more by racers and engineers than by the broader public. Today, however, it can be recognized for what it truly was, the philosophical and mechanical ancestor of the muscle car era. By combining unprecedented horsepower, advanced engine design, and factory-backed racing intent, the Chrysler C300 proved that muscle cars did not suddenly appear in the 1960s. They evolved from a bold, understated machine that had already shown the way a decade earlier.